What happens when a Hollywood legend faces a host who knows no boundaries? Jodie Foster, an actress renowned for her depth, intelligence, and restraint, appeared on the popular talk show The View to promote her new directorial project, a drama about the fight for human rights. No one was prepared for what happened next. This conflict not only stunned the audience but went down in television history as a moment that sparked reflection on respect, dignity, and the limits of public discourse. The View set sparkled under bright studio lights. The live audience buzzed with anticipation, and the scent of coffee and fresh set decorations filled the air. Jodie Foster entered with a confident yet reserved stride, her gray eyes radiating calm strength. Dressed in an elegant navy suit that underscored her sophistication, she was greeted with a burst of applause from the audience. The hosts, Joy Behar, Whoopi Goldberg, Sarah Haynes, and Sunny Hostin, welcomed her with warm smiles. "Jodie, welcome!" Joy Behar began with her signature wry smile. "You're back with another serious project, aren't you? Always these heavy topics, human rights struggles. Don't you ever get tired of saving the world?" Behar's tone was light, but there was already a hint of a jab in her words. The audience chuckled, though the laughter was slightly nervous. Jodie smiled, tilting her head slightly, her gaze steady. "I just tell stories that I think are worth telling," she replied softly but confidently. "This film is about people who fight against all odds. I think that's important." Whoopi Goldberg nodded, clearly trying to maintain a friendly atmosphere. "That's true, Jodie, your work always makes us think," she added, but Joy quickly seized the moment. "Well, you know," Behar interrupted, leaning back in her chair. "All these serious projects. Sometimes it feels like they're just a way for stars to seem deep. Don't you think?" A hush fell over the studio. The audience quieted, sensing the air thickening. Sarah Haynes shifted uncomfortably in her seat, and Sunny Hostin cast a quick glance at the producers offstage. The cameras hummed, zooming in on Jodie's face, which remained composed, though her fingers lightly gripped the armrest of her chair. Jodie took a slow breath, her gaze sharpening, but she maintained her composure. "I'm not trying to seem deep, Joy," she replied, her voice even but with a hint of firmness. "I do what I believe in. Art can change, inspire. It's not always about entertainment." Behar raised an eyebrow, clearly relishing the moment. She leaned forward, her eyes glinting. "Oh, art, of course," she said with a slight smirk. "But let's be honest, Jodie. You're a Hollywood star. You live in mansions, fly private jets. Doesn't it seem like these serious films are just a way to ease your conscience? You're not exactly on the front lines of human rights battles, are you?" The audience gasped. Some in the back rows pulled out their phones, sensing the moment could go viral. Whoopi Goldberg raised a hand, trying to intervene. "Wait, Joy, let's give Jodie a chance to explain," she said, but her voice was drowned out by the rising tension. Jodie Foster didn't break eye contact with Behar. Her face remained calm, but a faint tension appeared at the corners of her lips. She slowly folded her hands in her lap, as if gathering her thoughts. "Joy," she began, her voice deeper now, "I don't claim to be an activist. I'm an actress, a director. My job is to tell stories that make people think. If you think that's hypocrisy, maybe you don't understand how art works." The audience erupted in applause, but Behar didn't back down. She leaned back, crossing her arms, her smile widening. "Oh, I understand art, Jodie," she shot back, her tone sharper. "But let's talk about you. You love these serious roles, but why don't we ever hear about you speaking at protests or donating millions to these human rights causes? Doesn't it seem a bit convenient? Making films and calling it a fight?" The silence in the studio became oppressive. Even the camera operators, usually steady, exchanged nervous glances. The producers behind the glass wall of the studio whispered frantically, one of them raising a hand as if signaling the director to do something. Sarah Haynes opened her mouth to speak but quickly closed it, sensing the moment was spiraling out of control. Jodie Foster leaned forward slightly, her eyes locked on Behar. The only sounds in the studio were the faint hum of the cameras and the soft click of a crew member's heels backstage. Her voice, when she spoke, was quiet but piercing. Joy, I don't owe you or anyone else an explanation for how I live or what I do, she said. But let me make one thing clear. My work isn't just about making films. It's about giving a voice to those who aren't heard. If you think that's convenient, maybe you should ask yourself why you're using this platform to tear others down instead of lifting up important issues. The audience erupted in applause again, louder this time. Some even stood, cheering Jodie on. Whoopi Goldberg tried to defuse the situation, smiling and saying, Okay, let's all take a breath. Jodie, tell us more about your film. But Behar wouldn't relent. Her eyes narrowed, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Oh, Jodie, don't be so sensitive, she said, waving a hand. I'm just asking what everyone's thinking. You know how it works. People want to know if you really believe what you preach, or if it's just another role for an Oscar. Those words hit like a slap. Jodie's face froze for a moment, her fingers clenching into fists. She took a slow breath, and in that instant, everyone in the studio knew a line had been crossed. Even Sunny Hostin, usually reserved, leaned forward, as if ready to intervene. Joy, Jodie said, her voice trembling with restrained emotion. You don't have the right to judge my intentions or my life. And if you think you can humiliate me or my work for ratings, then it's not me playing a role here. The studio fell silent. The audience sat in tense anticipation, some filming on their phones, knowing this moment would soon flood social media. The producers backstage gestured frantically, and security near the entrance began moving closer to the set. What happens next? Will Jodie walk out, or will she deliver an even stronger rebuttal? Find out in the next part of this story that shocked everyone. The View studio was frozen in tense silence. Jodie Foster's sharp, piercing words hung in the air, her gaze locked on Joy Behar like a laser. Behar, usually impervious to verbal sparring, momentarily lost her trademark confidence. Her smile faltered, and the hand holding her pen trembled slightly. The audience, holding their breath, waited for what would come next. The cameras hummed, zooming in on Jodie's face, which radiated a mix of restrained anger and profound dignity. Jodie, I'm not humiliating anyone, I'm just asking the questions people care about. Behar tried to counter, but her voice lacked its usual conviction. She leaned forward, attempting to regain control. You know the public wants the truth. Do you really live by the principles you promote in your films, or is it just a pretty picture? Those words were the final straw. Jodie slowly rose from her chair, her movements calm but resolute. The click of her heels on the polished studio floor cut through the silence like a knife. The audience gasped, and the producers behind the glass wall of the studio gestured frantically, signaling the camera operators to keep the shot. Whoopi Goldberg raised her hands, trying to intervene. Jodie, wait, let's talk, Whoopi said, but her voice was drowned out by the mounting tension. Jodie paused, turning to face the audience and the cameras, her eyes shining with restrained emotion. She removed the microphone from her jacket and placed it on the table in front of Behar, a gesture both calm and devastating. Then she spoke, her voice quiet but chillingly powerful. Joy, I came here to talk about a project that means something to me, about people whose stories deserve to be heard. Instead, you chose to turn this into a circus, digging into my life and my motives. You want the truth? Here it is. I don't have to prove to you or anyone else that I'm a decent person. My work speaks for itself. But yours? Jodie paused, her gaze sharpening. You're using this platform to tear others down and calling it truth. That's not journalism. It's not dialogue. It's just noise. The studio erupted in applause. Some audience members stood, cheering Jodie on, while others sat in stunned silence, unable to look away from the stage. Sarah Haynes offered an awkward smile, clearly unsure how to react, and Sunny Hostin quietly murmured, Wow! Joy Behar, who always had a comeback, sat speechless, her face flushed, her hands nervously clutching the papers on the table. Jodie turned to the audience, her voice warming but still firm. I want to say to all of you, she addressed the crowd in the studio and beyond the screens, that art isn't just entertainment. It's a way to show the world we can be better. Don't let anyone make you think your efforts, whatever they are, don't matter. Every voice matters. Every story matters. With those words, she turned and walked toward the exit. Her steps echoed through the studio, and the security guards by the doors parted to let her pass. The cameras hurriedly tracked her movements, while the producers backstage looked as though their world had just collapsed. As the doors closed behind Jodie, the studio erupted in a mix of emotions. Part of the audience clapped, shouting words of support, while others whispered among themselves, clearly stunned by what had just happened. Some were already scrolling through their phones, uploading videos of the moment to social media. Whoopi Goldberg tried to steer the show back on track, smiling and saying, "Well, that was unforgettable. Let's take a break, shall we?" But her words were lost in the crowd's buzz. Joy Behar, still seated at the table, looked shell-shocked. She attempted a joke, saying, "Well, it's called The View for a reason, right?" But it fell flat in the awkward silence. Backstage, the producers were in a frenzy, discussing how to salvage the situation. One was already on the phone with the PR team, anticipating the moment would go viral. And they were right. Within hours, clips of Jodie's speech flooded social media, sparking a torrent of comments. Some called her words inspiring, while others thought she overreacted. Hashtags #Jodie Foster and #Joy Behar trended instantly. The clash on The View became a hot topic in the media. Some outlets praised Jodie for her dignity and conviction, calling her speech a masterclass in standing up for oneself. Others accused her of being overly sensitive, arguing she should have been prepared for tough questions. Joy Behar faced a wave of criticism. Some saw her provocation as justified, but most called her behavior unethical. This moment prompted many to reflect. Where is the line between journalistic candor and humiliation? Does a public figure have the right to defend their private life so fiercely? And did Jodie do the right thing by walking out, or could she have stayed and continued the dialogue? What do you think about this conflict? Who was right, Jodie, standing up for her dignity, or Joy, trying to get to the truth? Share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay updated on stories like this that challenge our views on television and human principles. As Jodie Foster exited the View studio, the air crackled with tension. The audience's applause faded into stunned murmurs, some filming the moment on their phones. Joy Behar, visibly shaken, tried to recover with a weak smile. "Well, that's The View," she quipped, but the audience's response was tepid. Whoopi Goldberg jumped in, forcing a laugh. "Let's take a break," she said, as cameras cut to commercial. Backstage, producers scrambled, sensing a media storm. Within minutes, clips of Jodie's speech, her calm yet fierce words and microphone drop, flooded social media. Hashtags #Jodie Foster walks and #Joy Behar vs. Jodie trended worldwide, with millions sharing and debating the moment. The fallout was swift. Headlines praised Jodie's dignity, with outlets calling her exit a stand for respect. Others criticized her as overly sensitive. Joy faced backlash for her provocative style, with some defending her journalistic edge, but most deemed her approach cruel. Social media split, with memes of Jodie's walkout alongside heated arguments about talk show ethics. Jodie stayed silent initially, letting her actions speak. Her film gained attention, its themes of justice resonating widely. A week later, she posted, "Art seeks truth, not spectacle. Thank you for seeing the difference." The post went viral, amplifying her message. The incident sparked debate about talk shows, dialogue, or drama. Some called for hosts to respect boundaries, while others argued public figures should face scrutiny. The View saw a ratings boost but lost some advertisers amid the controversy. Joy later offered a half apology. "I push buttons. If I went too far, my bad, but I asked the tough questions." The clash became a cultural touchstone, highlighting the clash between vulnerability and sensationalism. Who was right? Jodie, defending her principles, or Joy, probing for truth? Share your thoughts below and join the debate about truth versus spectacle in media. Subscribe for more stories that challenge and inspire.